Olá a todos, estão com a Cuca Talks, bem-vindos. O meu nome é Bruno Andrade e sou consultor da Cuca by Tech. O que são as Cuca Talks? Muito rapidamente, a ideia aqui é falar um pouco sobre as últimas tendências de transformação digital, marketing e vendas e também internacionalização. A Cuca by Tech, enquanto consultora para PMEs, tem diferentes especialistas nestas áreas e queremos que estes temas sejam mais discutidos, mais pensados, mais debatidos e por isso decidimos ser proativos quanto à partilha das nossas ideias. Antes de mais, obrigado a todos os que acompanharam a nossa conversa anterior sobre sustentabilidade, que desde já aproveito para dizer que ainda está disponível na nossa página de LinkedIn e também no canal do YouTube. Hoje trazemos uma breve conversa em que vamos abordar o tema da transformação digital em business to business e temos como convidado David Lask, um dos fundadores da Fintech mexicana Creze, uma plataforma de atribuição de empréstimos para pequenas e médias empresas 100% digital. Hi David, thank you so much for being here today with us at Cuca Talks. We go a long way back. We met in London in 2014 during your MBA at Imperial. And I remember, you know, back then you were already super keen on fintech. I remember you always chasing and challenging everyone's definition of fintech. So it's great to see how you've successfully created a business in this space. You know, fintech, the way I see it, has been growing quite a lot. We have the market already, you know, with the number of different market dimensions. You know, you have propositions in payments, you have personal finance, you have currencies, including crypto, you have alternative finance, invoicing, so on and so forth. Do you think overall fintech evolved as you expected?
Hi, Bruno. Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Very happy to talk about this subject. And you are correct. I think fintech is something that has been happening for the last more or less a decade in an industry that has been very stagnant throughout time. And this change has come forward very, very quickly, given the new technologies that are available in different markets and how these technologies can affect the clients and the companies that offer their services in a specific client.
Cool. And you started Creze with some other founders roughly 5 years ago or 4 years ago. Tell us a bit more about Creze and what you guys are doing right now.
Of course, yeah. Creze started in 2016. It came by with the idea that particularly in Mexico, all the SMEs in the country that we consider to be the motor of the economy were not getting enough attention by the banks or other financial institutions. Although the SMEs in Mexico are very different. It's a huge market. There's over 5 million SMEs in Mexico, and they make up around 97% of the Mexican economy. And so we consider them to be the motor of this economy, but even so, there is still a lot of problems for banks to be able to offer them credit because of various reasons. One of them is the information asymmetry that we see in the market. There is not enough information to be able to analyze these clients and give them a line of credit. And on the other side, the transactional cost of getting credit to an SME is quite similar to giving credit to a larger company. So most of the banks have moved to giving larger tickets to bigger companies instead of focusing on SMEs, which, as I said, they are the motor of the economy. You know? So with that in mind, we founded Creze in 2016 using technology that was already available in different parts of the world to be able to apply it here in Mexico and serve these clients through a digital channel, 100% digital channel, through which they can access financial products they had previously no access or very limited access to them. The company has grown considerably since 2016. We still hold less than 1% of the market. So there is still a long way to go. The market is huge. The necessity is quite still there. There are other players that are coming into the market, but it is something that is booming. It's something that is changing the way SMEs can access the funds they need to be able to grow.
And how do you think, so you mentioned that to an extent, traditional banking was not tapping into this market because the benefits of actually addressing it were outweighed by the fact they had other clients they could focus on, with higher transaction fees for them potentially. So actually digital was the way you guys unlocked the market. Do you see other markets also being tapped in a similar way? How do you see, the digital function actually expanding your business right now?
Well, yeah, it's been a significant change in the last years. Access to digital platforms in Mexico has grown considerably, but there's still a long way to go. What clients in Mexico do have a lot is access to at least smartphones. Yeah. And that has been very relevant to our business model. How can we use this advancement in the adoption of digital technologies to be able to access more information that perhaps previously was not accessible for credit analysis purposes, and use it in our risk model to be able to give this SME a digital and financial identity. Many of these SMEs, they don't have their numbers very well put out. They don't have a lot of technological platforms that they use. So how can we use these two parts of this? One, the adoption of these new technologies and the use of alternative data to be able to give these clients a financial identity that we can use to analyze and therefore give them a line of credit that is very specific to their needs, not going through a standard, more traditional model. Like what banks do with SMEs is that they tell you, you need to have this list of information and this list of requirements in order to access a financial product with us. But that for a lot of SMEs is very, very difficult. We have a lot of clients that many times tell us, you know what, I don't know how I can access a traditional bank if what they ask for is to prove to them that I don't need credit in order for them to give me credit. Like they only look for companies that are already in a very safe space for them. Yeah. So what do I do? Maybe I'm not in the best financial position right now, but I still need this credit, and my cash conversion cycle perhaps tells you that I will be able to pay. So who can look at this information, analyze it in a certain way, use that financial information in addition to other alternative data to be able to give me the product that I need? And that's where we come in. Through all these digital platforms, there is still a long way to go, of course. There's still a lot of information that is unknown, but I think the wheels have been moving along, and it has been quite significant, particularly right now with all the COVID pandemic. The adoption of digital technologies has made a significant difference, and we are seeing more companies, maybe not because of the trend or a push in that direction, but because of a necessity in this particular time to be able to have access to this kind of products that are available online.
So in essence, it's really fundamental for your business, the way you guys manage risk, right? So that's really a critical success factor. How are you actually resourcing the company to handle risk in terms of how you acquire talent, but also how you build those data capabilities you were talking about?
Yeah, so it's one of the most important areas of the company in terms of data and in terms of what digital channels we can use both to reach our clients and to analyze their behavior and their financial status in order to give them a financial product. It's been quite a journey. There is one advantage here in Mexico, in which several years ago, the government instituted digital invoicing in the country. That has made a significant difference for them in terms of being able to, the tax authorities being able to handle all the information about the operations of the SMEs and other companies in the country. But at the same time, that gives us the possibility to access all the invoicing of a company through a digital channel and immediately and automatically give them a pre-qualification of what they will be able to access with us. So that has made a significant difference in terms of knowing the real status of the company. Many times, if you use banking statements, the transactional data can give you a lot of information, but it's not necessarily accurate. There's a lot of internal movement, cash funding of different companies within a group, payments that do not necessarily have to do with the company's day-to-day transactions. But on the other hand, invoicing and digital invoicing does make a significant difference, because that can really tell you a lot about the cash flow of the company. So we have two parts for this. On one side is analyzing the financials of the company and the cash flow and the cash flow analysis to be able to tell them what their capacity for credit is. And on the other side is the KYC side, in which we use a lot of alternative data to be able to identify that this person is telling the truth and they are who they say they are, and they can have access to an amount that they say they can. So that's been a very interesting path. We have tried with traditional data and alternative data in parallel. We have modified along the way our risk model to be able to use the best data points that we can get. For example, if a client is in retail and they have certain specific parts of their company that we can identify, we can say, okay, this company should have a Facebook page, just to set an example, and it should have a lot of movement and it should have posts. But if you're a retailer and you sell online, but you don't have a website or you don't have a Facebook page on which you're active, it doesn't mean that we're gonna raise some alarm on why a company that is focused on retail is not using these kind of channels.
Right. So you actually said something really interesting. So the government, by the government being more digital, to an extent, it enabled you guys to get better data that you now use to your risk model. I think that's quite interesting, because sometimes we see governments as being very bureaucratic and not always being fully digital. In this case, you actually have a good example on how government can also be an ecosystem player, right? Which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and adding a little bit to that, as you know, the Fintech law here in Mexico came out a couple of years ago. It is still, you know, it's a long process. There is still things that are going on, but we were considered as a forefront in terms of fintech regulation here in Mexico. And as I said, there's still a long way to go, but it has opened a lot of ways that previously were not available. So these new different kind of models, how can you regulate them? How can you help them to really change the financial industry in the country? And starting in Europe, all the concept of open banking is something that is opening up here in Mexico, and that is going to be also a game changer for the fintech sector. Being able to access the client's banking records as a whole, instead of having to reach out to each of the banks that they work with, or having the client himself having to extract that data and send it over to you. So it's still ongoing. There's a lot of things that have been possible. It's still quite complicated in terms of the specific, secondary rules. But I think it's going to make quite a difference in how we take fintech in Mexico.
Yeah, very good, very good. And in terms of your interaction with your customers, so it's, by the sounds of it, you guys are pretty much 100% digital, or do you still have one-to-one human interaction? Do you think it's possible for a business to be fully digital?
Look, I think that touches into the cultural side, which is also quite relevant. So what I would say, Creze is around 80% digital and 20% still one-on-one with the client. Why? Because of two parts. One of them is there is some information that we can't fully incorporate into our business, our risk model yet. For example, if an SME client has a new contract with a large multinational company, then we cannot really evaluate that contract automatically to be able to enter its data into our risk model. So we do have an analyst who look into those parts, those specific parts that we still don't have digital, to be able to put their input into the risk model and be able to give an answer to the client. So that's on one side. There's some information that's still hard to process digitally. And on the other side, it's a cultural factor, particularly here in Mexico, where a lot of concentration on very few banks. Here in Mexico, there's 50 banks compared to the United States, where there's 5,000 banks. So on that side, giving a face or a voice to the company that you are working with for financial products does make a difference. So we do try to keep our company close to our clients, from one side through this digital part, but at the same time giving a face to who they're dealing with. No, and also we do have by law to interview the clients. here in Mexico, and that helps to be in line with regulations, and at the same time to clear up some information that might not make sense in the analysis, in the digital and automatic analysis.
Yeah, thank you. And something that's it's really frustrating for me personally is that I still see in traditional banking a lot of paperwork. Sometimes, you know, obviously there's a regulation side to it. Sometimes it just seemed to me that it's lack of digital capability. But do you think there's also a component related to behavior? So the way people look at banks as very solid, and they need the paperwork actually to provide reassurance to clients. Do you think, for example, sometimes going fully digital can generate issues in terms of trust from a customer perspective?
Yes, that is correct. So we think that fintech technology is a double-edged sword. Why is that? Because on one side, you can facilitate access to these financial products to clients in a very streamlined way, in a very quick manner, if you are a serious company. But at the same time, it is very easy for somebody with other intentions to set up a website and try to get information from the clients. No? So I think it's a very interesting point that you touch regarding how that process can generate trust for the client. I think it's a very thin line between the amount of information that you ask for and the how you process that information. No? Asking to a lot of our clients, one of their main reasons why they come to us is because a bank will take between 2 or 3 months to give them credit, and in that timing, they have to give them a lot of information. They have to give them a call to see what the status is. They're going to ask for additional information, additional paperwork, and it's always a mess. So that kind of brings down the clients considerably because it's taking a long time. You know, my company makes, I don't know, a financial person, so this is very difficult. My accountant maybe doesn't have the information and I have to look for this. So it does get complicated, but at the same time, it does generate trust that it's a serious process. In terms of fintech, we do ask for much less information, but the key point here is clients knowing which companies are serious companies that can help them out and which ones they should not trust. So it is a very important part of winning the trust of our clients through bringing this, building this brand image and putting out there that Creze is one of the companies that is serious and it's a real company, unlike other online platforms that may not be in the same space. No, so it's a very thin line that you have to be handling along the way. You do want to ask the minimal amount of information so the client can have a quick response, but at the same time, you also want to establish that Creze is a company that will not be a bureaucratic process and can help you out.
Okay, that's very cool. And I wanted to make you a last question related to the company culture. So obviously in startups, sometimes in smaller businesses that grow very fast, sometimes it's really hard to maintain a company culture that everyone buys into. How do you see the evolution of Creze's company culture? Did it grow as you guys expected? And do you have an example on how that company culture was actually transformative for the business?
Yeah, so we since the beginning, following 2 lines. One of them is being a startup and the push and the kind of people that you need in a startup in order to make it grow. So that was a very important component of the culture in Creze. And at the same time, how can a new financial institution differentiate itself from the traditional hierarchical banks that we know of? No? One of the main problems that we saw in that is one of the reasons that they are so bureaucratic is the separation between the different areas of a company, of a traditional financial institution. There is always problems and conflict between different teams to be able to carry out a task because everybody is in their own bunker. And we try to flip that over in Creze to make it a horizontal kind of structure in which the different teams can collaborate in a much easier way. The different teams do understand what the other team's responsibilities are and how they affect what they do. And that has been a strong push in the company in order to go in line with a very streamlined, very optimized workflow. How can we pair that up with the company culture? No? how can we make it, instead of going up and down and here and back and over there, can we make it as linear as possible? And to do that, you need to have a team that understands where they are positioned, where the other teams are positioned, and how they work with each other. So we've tried to make it as horizontal as possible, and so far it's worked pretty well. Instead of having these bureaucratical problems in the company in which different areas do not communicate, the communication is quite open. Sometimes we even mix where they sit with one team with another to be able to have that day-to-day conversation in terms of different issues and not being only focused on one team in particular. And throughout time, that has worked considerably. What we did realize last year is that there has been some problems in terms of the mid management part, in which a lot of operational people were doing a very great job. And there was also a top management that was also there, but we did try to pull them together during the lack of that mid management that we realized that we had last year.
Okay, that's very interesting. Just maybe just a final note. When you mentioned that, in terms of your risk model, you're now expanding the way you analyze the risk by looking into other platforms, behavior of the company in different dimensions. And you mentioned, for example, how they are present in the different social channels. And for example, sustainability, is that something that could, for example, change how you guys assess the risk of a company? If a company has a more serious a more serious and thoughtful process in terms of addressing the environment, in terms of addressing how sustainable they are, is that something that could benefit potentially companies that you work with?
Yes. So in the one-on-one interview that we have with clients, we do ask their position on those topics. We do try to understand what their impact in terms is in the economy, socially, environmentally, in terms of sustainability. And we do consider that as a plus if they do have an explanation of what their company is doing in order to grow on that part. Unfortunately, it is still very hard to measure it through data. Given the kind of clients that we have that are SMEs, there is not a lot of information. And many of them, to be honest, is not really their focus on sustainability. But we do try to push through education and through how we interact with our clients, that this is something that is very prioritizing. They have to prioritize it a lot in their company in order to be able to be aligned with what our company values are. So it is an important factor in the decision making, but we are trying more of a push on our side to be able to make these companies have this in mind instead of just floating forward like they usually do without having these terms of sustainability in mind as a part of their model.
Okay. Cool, David. Thank you so much. It's time for us now to close. Time for me to thank you for your amazing insights about Creze as an example of digitalization in business to business. I wish you all the best for Creze and for the new challenges you're about to take on. To all of those listening to us, thank you also so much for your time. And we'll talk to you soon on the next Kuka Talks. Thank you.